Tannenbaum, O Tannenbaum, wie treu sind deine Blätter. O Tannenbaum, O Tannenbaum, wie treu sind deine Blätter. Du grünst nicht nur zur Sommerzeit, nein auch im Winter, wenn es schneit. O Tannenbaum, O Tannenbaum, wie treu sind deine Blätter. O Tannenbaum, O Tannenbaum, du kannst mir sehr gefallen. O Tannenbaum, O Tannenbaum, du kannst mir sehr gefallen. Wie oft hat mich zur Winterzeit eins weit von dir mich hoch erfreut. O Tannenbaum, O Tannenbaum, du kannst mir sehr gefallen. Du grünst nicht nur zur Sommerzeit, nein auch im Winter, wenn es schneit. O Tannenbaum, O Tannenbaum.
Welcome back. Welcome back to Los Angeles, man. Man. That was the Nat King Cole version of O Tannenbaum, which is a beautiful German Christmas song. I was inspired by some friends here who have a very nice coffee shop in Beverly Hills. It's an Orthodox Jewish couple, um, and the shop was open and they were blasting Christmas music, and I thought only in America. It was really beautiful. So I wanted to join the fun. I wanted to join the celebrations, and let's see if we can get this going. If we can get some more people on the panel. I hope it will be. I think it will be a lot of fun. I'm planning to go for quite a bit of time here. I'm not in a particular hurry. Um, certainly, certainly going to talk about watches, but we don't necessarily have to. Um, yeah, I'm just gonna talk about my trip back, which was really odd. I In the morning I received a message from United saying that my flight was delayed for about 2 hours, and I was completely fine with that because New York for me is a place where I go, of course, to do some business, but also to see friends. So to get another 2 hours of the day, for a flight that's going to be already later in the evening. It was great for me. Um, I cherished that opportunity. I hung out with my friend who is the owner of that beautiful pre-moon Speedmaster that you may have seen on my Instagram a couple of times. Um, Here it is on my wrist, brother early on the trip. It's really a beautiful watch. Has the 3-2-1 movement. It's it also has a very nice story too. Of course, since the owner of this watch also had a two-tone Rolex Submariner, and his wife apparently asked him to wear the Speedmaster as well on a two-tone bracelet, um, which he did, and that's why my friend these days wears it on this old school calfskin leather strap with that end stitching, double end stitching, which I really love. Actually, it really fits the vibe of that watch, but I think it's also just cool, because these days, a lot of us wear watches on leather straps, not necessarily because we don't, own the original bracelet, not because we have misplaced the original bracelet or strap, but to add a certain flourish, um, to show a different kind of style, to perhaps dig into that watch and see what else is in there, beyond the conventional look, beyond the factory setting, beyond what it comes on at default. But a lot of times, of course, when it comes to vintage watches, you'll see it is a practice born out of necessity, and this watch certainly is a case of that. But it's also a case where you have a very well worn and weathered calfskin leather strap that accompanies it on its second life, so to speak, and it is really a thing of beauty. Um, Most vintage Speedmasters are, if you ask me, but especially this one, since it belongs to a friend, and since he loves wearing it so much, and he was more than willing to share that joy with me. And yes, here it is with its brother, so to speak, the Lemania CH27 chronograph from the 40s, with its late 60s progeny in the Omega Seamaster, that beautiful CH27, or in the reference that was used for the Moonwatch, Lemania 2320 or Omega 321, as it's also called, and it's been revived in this way by Omega as well. They apparently have a separate workshop, basically, where they assemble these movements these days, which I appreciate because it's truly limited production, apparently. So it's not just um, something that they're trying to keep from the end customer. Um, so yes, I was talking about my trip back to Los Angeles, and so yeah, I was quite happy. I got to spend the day with my friend. hang out with my friend and make new friends in the process as well. And then at the end of the day, of course, and it was Christmas Eve, so they closed earlier, and I basically got myself to back to Brooklyn where I was staying, stuffed all my stuff into the bags I traveled with, and somehow made my way back to the airport. Pardon me. And of course, because it was Christmas Eve, of course, the cabs were extremely expensive. And by that, I mean the lift. It didn't take a while. Thankfully, it was a pretty straight ride from where I was, from Brooklyn to Newark, almost a straight line, which is very interesting. And the streets were completely empty. The airport wasn't. The airport wasn't, and I figured out in time that had a couple of reasons. One was, of course, because it was Christmas Eve and people travel um, to make it home in time with their families, and not everyone gets the luxury to travel ahead of time. I travel on Christmas Eve because I'm cheap, because I'm broke, because I uh, take advantage of cheaper tickets. But hey, that's how they get you. At the end, I ended up paying a leg and an arm for the cab. Mike, David, nice to see you, man. So happy to have you on board. Good afternoon from the Gold Coast. You are from down under. I remember that. Um, so yeah, I made it back. I made it to the airport, to Newark Liberty Airport, to New Jersey from Brooklyn, and the airport was teeming. The airport was spilling over with people, which is usually not the sight you have. I like traveling on holidays because a lot of times, I participate in them, but I don't necessarily personally celebrate a lot of the American holidays, including Christmas and Merry Christmas. Um, so usually I travel on holidays, and it's not always busy, but there was clearly something going on which I didn't know and which I couldn't figure out immediately. So I started just walking around, went through security, got to my gate, and then I realized, I have all this time, so why not sit at a restaurant and have a luxury experience? And what connotes the feeling of luxury more than an overpriced diner with a bottomless soda and a bottomless cup of coffee? So I ordered an extremely overpriced vegan burger that came with a side of delicious fries. Aiden Valento, what's up? What's up to you? How are you doing, man? Merry Christmas, and happy holidays. Um, I went through the food pretty quickly, as you can imagine. I do have a good appetite, and then the waitress, who was really nice, kept bringing me sodas, diet Pepsis, which I don't usually drink, but the concept of bottomless soda in a traditional looking diner, which is in this non-place that we call the airport, was just too exciting for me and too American as not to indulge. So I must have drank, I think, like 5 sodas. Um, and I must have also drank maybe 4 or 5 cups of coffee. Thomas, I have eaten in many New Jersey, Connecticut, but especially New York City diners. Astro is probably my favorite in New York, in New York City on Manhattan. I also love Tom's Diner, which would be familiar to most people from that extended external shot where a diner appears in Seinfeld. So that's the outside of Tom's Diner in Morningside Heights, which is a place that I really like as well. And as you know, a lot of these places are traditionally owned by Greek families, and run for generations in that way. So I really appreciate that as well. JJ, hey man, my love to Michigan, and please, I appreciate you and wish you a Merry Christmas, my friend. Aiden Valento says, "Do I like Trump?" Aiden, I don't talk politics on this channel. Period. Um, I I don't like politicians. I can tell you that, and that probably tells you a lot more than I even want to discuss. But that's my response to that question. I don't like people who make a career out of politics. Um, and again, I'm a very political person. Actually, I love discussing politics, but that's not the this is not the mission of the channel. This is not the um, platform of the channel. So I would rather keep out of it. When panelists discuss it, I sometimes join. I of course don't intervene in any way, and don't try to shut anyone down for sure. So if you want to discuss, be my guest. You can always click the link and join. Um, yeah, so I do enjoy diners. So it was for me, but again, Thomas, as you know, a real diner is a true experience, whereas the airport by definition is a transitory space, right? Um, you know, people came up with this concept of a third space, um, which is neither home nor work, but kind of in between. And especially, of course, with the proliferation of remote working options and even restrictions, third spaces became perhaps as important, if not more important, than work or home. The airport is like a non-space, right? It's not even a third space. It's not a space to inhabit. It's not a space to work from. It's not a space to even eat, indulge, drink, or shop. But you can do all of those things, right? While you're in transition. So for me, that's a very interesting concept. And because I associate diners with this strange throwback, um, performative authenticity, I just love this. And what convinced me was genuinely the bottomless soda, which to me is the most American thing ever. Love it. Um, I love Omega. I love Tudor. I love them both. Thomas says Jersey is different. In New York City, check out Townhouse Cafe. Where were you, Thomas? I was in New York City, which means by New Jersey, for the first 3 weeks of December. I wish you were giving me these these recommendations while I was still there. Yes, diners and people who work at diners tend to become family, which again, is why this place to me was intriguing, because by definition, unless you are flying through the same airport, on a very regular basis, you just can't become family. You can't become familiar with people who work in these places, even if they're very friendly, even if they take great care of you. And this was certainly the case here. Um, hey, man, Happy New Year, and Hak Sameach. Um, but yes, I like. Um, I'm a huge fan of the Speedmaster, which won't surprise you, but I like a lot of different vintage Omegas as well, by and large. Um, yeah, I'm not a huge fan of what Omega is these days, but that's a huge discussion. I would rather not make very generalized statements because once every so often, like the 321 project, they do something that really intrigues me, that really pulls me in. Uh, every year they release at least one watch that I actually love and certainly wouldn't mind having in my collection. Um, Tudor, for me, aesthetically, uh, represents more or less everything that I like about watches, that I like about vintage watches, especially, and vintage Rolex and Tudor particularly. Pardon me. So because I'm a picky person by nature, and because I have strong opinions, I can't help it. I end up usually having one or two little qualms about Tudor models that I really like. But that's the point. I really like them. I just did not add one to the collection. But I do. I think I want to get a Tudor Black Bay 58 in bronze. I think that's going to be my first Tudor, and probably, yeah. That's sweet, Marcelo. Um, Thomas says nothing like waitresses calling you honey, sweetheart. That's Jersey love from Tough to Tommy. Um, yeah, it's kind. It's kind. A lot of the older waitresses, especially, they can be really maternal, really caring. Uh, it's a beautiful atmosphere. I also the uncles are great too. A lot of the Greek owners of diners that I like, since I love soccer so much, since I love football, we will talk a lot about some of the big Greek teams like Olympiakos and Panathinaikos, and a lot of the how they're faring in the league, how they are competing, if at all, in Europe, whether it's the Champions League or the UEFA Cup. Now it's called the Europa League. Um, love it, love it. It's a great place, and yes, of course, the staff in general, the waiters are a much more diverse crowd. But Thomas, you have your finger on the pulse there. They are usually chosen from women. I mean, it's much more rare to uh, have a male waiter in a traditional diner, right? And that's funny now that I think about it, but it's certainly part of the genre. So you know what you're talking about. Um, you know what you're talking about for sure. So yeah, because the messages kept coming, right? Because that's one of the beautiful things about the modern time we live in. The flight status constantly gets updated on your phone, and they keep sending you messages. And in this case, it was one more hour, another 45 minutes, and finally we were already 3 hours late, and I already had um, yeah, I was full to the brim, right? I had five sodas and four cups of coffee or something. And because, again, the waitress was really sweet, she also poured me another cup of coffee in a to-go cup. Whatever, I went. barely made it to the restroom, of course. My apologies, too much information. And then made it to the gates and realized everything seemed even busier and there were possibly even more people. What's going on? I finally found a seat, kind of started relaxing, and the lady who was sitting next to me tells me, "Oh, there apparently there's a pipe burst, a water pipe burst in the control tower, and it was evacuated, and um, that's why everything is so late." So I start worrying, and we are uh, two groups basically, the two gates that are next to each other. There's a plane to Delhi that's gonna leave from the next gate, and that plane apparently had even more problems. So when they were talking about those problems, I get even more worried and confused at a certain point that there was our plane's problem. There was icing or whatever. But at the end of the day, we took off 4 hours of delay. It was okay, but I ended up arriving, at 4 a.m. in the morning. So my apologies. No show yesterday and no show earlier today, even though I said I will start doing more early shows. But today I simply did not have energy. Also, um, as I was trying to uh, tell you, I'm still in the process of unpacking and settling, and there are all sorts of little problems, of course, as or issues, let's say, not problems necessarily, but little things that I need to take care of that keep coming up, of course, in the process of that move. So I didn't have a lot of time to do another show earlier today. So I do apologize for that, but I needed to come in and celebrate Christmas with you, especially because I was inspired earlier, uh, by the fact that everyone was blasting Christmas music, which is again very strange because it's not a holiday um, that I celebrate personally, even though I have many friends like you do. And I remember when I first arrived in the US, I was fed up with the fact that in the so-called holiday season, there was just too much of the same song being played over and over again. So at that time, we didn't even have Michael Bublé. So if it was all the old school Christmas classics, which were fine and great, but mostly Mariah Carey. Um, so you know it was getting to me at a certain point, but I love the fact that having now spent almost 20 years in this country, I just love it. I love it. I love the holiday season. I love Christmas. I love it when the songs come up, and that's why I also wanted to uh, pay pay special homage to the Teutonic heritage as well by playing Nat King Cole's rendition of "O Tannenbaum." It was fantastic. Yeah, the David Bowie, Ben Cosby, the little drummer boy, right? That's they have a duet like that. I love that too. Again, um, respect the Santa. Hey man, Santa doesn't bring me any gifts. Santa never brought me any gifts actually, and I was so nice through the years. So I don't know. I don't know. I don't have disrespect for Santa, but not sure if we're on good terms. So you should ask Santa about me, rather than the other way around. You should remind him of my existence so I get recognized in some way. Joking aside, of course, this was a great year. Um, and I was gonna say I have a feeling, but I actually know that 2023 will be even better. So I'm very, very happy with everything that has happened for this channel, which is a very young channel, as you know, only operational since February. So it has come very far, to be at this level, to have, more than 1,300 um, subscribers at this point. I find it astonishing, and honestly, it's one of the things that I think about every day. Um, when I wake up, it's one of the first things that comes to my mind. I'm like, I have a YouTube channel, and there are more than 1,000 people who subscribe to it, who listen to it, who participate in it in some way, um, and who recognize what I do and share here. So I appreciate all of you. Don't take me wrong. So Santa may not have brought me one specific gift, but this channel and the community around it is certainly more than uh, a single gift that I can receive. Bruce G, so nice to see you, man. Happy holidays to all. Timing of the show is great for me. Just woke up and making coffee. That's great. That's great. I was just thinking of how much coffee I drank yesterday. So today I was fine with just one large cup, but yeah, oof, even for me that was a lot of coffee. So I pulled this out from the archives basically because this was the watch that Alexandre Eschliman, who is the owner of Andersen Genève. Of course, Sven Andersen is the founder and is still part of the company. He was personally presenting the new Andersen Asprey London collaboration on Madison in the store that Asprey has there. And this is the watch he was wearing. And the watch was, of course, on a tour for exhibitions of all the finalists, which are called nominees in the jargon of GPHG, the Grand Prix d'Horlogerie de Genève. And this watch was, as you would remember, one of the finalists in the ladies complications category. And to me, it was, I had found it a little unjust that it did not actually win, because you would remember that both of the complications were won by Hermes's very innovative expression of world time, where the dial was traveling around the dial, Le Temps Voyageur, which I think is a beautiful watch. But the fact that in two different sizes, it won both of the complication awards, two different sizes, two different medals. The large one basically won the men's complication, and the small one won the ladies complication. And I thought that was a little off. I didn't understand the logic behind it. Surely, it was enough to recognize it once and give the, either the men's or the ladies complication to one of the other watches. But anyway, I guess they had a good reason to do it in their own way. I'm sure the jury rationalized it in some way, but I thought this was the watch to recognize really By the way, this is a beautiful detail, right? That enamel filled logo on the buckle itself is beautiful. This is a white gold watch, has a very lovely, expressive case with these angular lugs, which themselves, by the way, are very masculine, if you ask me. Um, it reminds me of these early chronograph cases that have similar lugs and that command actually a, a very big premium usually. Um, I'm trying to I'm blanking out on the name of the producer. They used to make cases for, among others, for Universal Genève. Um, Sorry that I'm blanking out here, but it will come to me. But what I mean to say at the end of the day is I really like the expression of the lugs, how sharply angular they are in their drop. Um, and I think it gives a very interesting balance to the watch, which is, of course, a jam set piece, a very ornate piece in a way, with that tapisserie guilloche in the center dial, which is actually not a hand guilloche, but a pantograph uh, drawn piece, much like the famous dial of the Royal Oak, right? By the same technique. It is expressed on their by now house style of 21 karat blue gold, and the bezel is set with baguette cut aquamarine, um, and it's just an incredibly beautiful watch, and here's how it looks from the back, which is even better. um, the way they chose to reflect that same pattern on the rotor, of course, is kind of self-evident because they do that across many of their different models. But this particular pattern, with the color, which is of course very carefully chosen, has this oceanic feeling that just pulls you in. Um, that it washes over you, so to speak, if you allow me the pun. And this is a very elegant watch, again, with that hinged case back, which itself is beautifully finished on the inside, as you can see. Um, the movement is also beautiful and very finely put together, as you would expect from a watchmaker of Anderson Genève's caliber, and as you would expect from the watchmaker, uh, whose founder, Sven Anderson, is of course uh, actually one of the creators of that academy of independent horological creators, right? Basically, the think tank, let's say in a different terminology, that um, began the new era of independent watchmaking, and that gave it a different kind of legitimacy and institutionalization. So, certainly, if you ask me, I know that, um, especially since the 1415, since late 30s, basically, uh, the world time, or heure universelle, is a complication, is a type of watch that is associated with Patek Philippe, even though there were other watchmakers and jewelers who had world time watches, whose complications were also supplied by Louis Cotier, who was the inventor, of course, of this model. Well, technically, apparently, his father was the inventor of the complication, but he was the one who patented it and executed it successfully. Um, and he's also the person, Louis Cotier, by the way, behind Patek Philippe's travel time complication, which is still used today, of course, in many Patek Philippe watches, but was famously introduced in a bygone era, in mid 50s, with this model 2597. That's the reference 2597, which was introduced in 1958 and had those now iconic pushers on the left flank of the case to jump the hours back and forth. What is the ask on this watch? I think it's like 67, 70,000. So a lot of money, but also rather in the range of what Patek asks for these kinds of watches. So it's not excessive. It's not outrageous, on top of what is already a prestigious and quite an exclusive um, genre of watches to begin with. And again, you might say by now there are, travel watches, travel time watches that perhaps execute this complication better, in a more useful way, in a more technically advanced way. Um, GMT Master is an icon in its own regard. We were just a couple of days ago discussing the GMT Rattrapante that Parmigiani Fleurier introduced this year, which is a very, very lovely execution of splitting the local time and home time, our hands, and bringing them back together. We were just talking about Hermes's Le Timbre Voyageur, which is perhaps a little more expressive, a little more visually striking in the way that the main dial rotates as if it is traveling itself through the dial. But yes, in this purest form, I think it's really a prestige watch more than anything, and I think the way it's ornamented in this particular fashion makes it beautiful. And I know, again, it was a finalist in Ladies Complication, but this also has a very nautical feel, and I'm not just saying that because it was it's set with aquamarine, as a stone. It's just such a beautiful shade of blue, the way they used it in the center dial. I don't know. I feel like, this is easily a watch that can be worn by men. I mean, Monsieur Eschliman was wearing it, and it didn't look off at all. And yeah, I mean, this is not a watch that I would honestly get for a significant other. This is a watch that I would get for myself, if you ask me. I think I would look for something even more ornamental, even more, jewelry like for a woman myself. But that's just my perspective. I mean, look, it doesn't really look out of place on my hairy arm, does it? So it's quite a fine piece. Mm. And yeah, I think it's a nice, again, white metal is, I think, beautifully chosen for this watch. It makes it a little more sporty. If this same watch was made with a different kind of stone, like let's say with sapphires and platinum, it could have been a little more severe and cold. If it were made with rubies and pink gold, um, I think that would be quite feminine indeed, and maybe in a more exclusive way. I think the way they chose the aquamarine, which goes really well with the shade of that center dial, um, as well as that particular alloy of white gold, which has a very beautiful sheen to it. Um, yeah, it's not too warm, right? And that goes beautifully with the aquamarine. Emerald on platinum, yeah, that would work. That would work. I mean, certainly, again, it would probably drive the price of the watch even further up. But this is certainly a beautiful take. Again, I don't, not that I would mind Clausenet enamel dial on a Patek either. But hey, this is just great. This is just great. I think it's kind of perfect. I like, by the way, speaking of world times that are husband and wife, um, Jamie Opulence, of course, has that sort of combo, right? He has his 5231 uh, J, which is the yellow gold, of course, with Clausenet enamel, and his wife has the 7130R, which has guilloche decorated center dial in a rose gold case that is set with brilliant cut diamonds on the bezel. This is certainly a beautiful, beautiful piece, beautiful pair, um, and wonderfully well put together in terms of his and hers, husband and and wife kind of set. Green leather strap from our favorites in Argentina, right? Casa Faliano, right? They're great makers. They had just posted. Now that you mentioned it, they posted a very adorable little picture in their Instagram account, um, of the family. Look at them through the generations. It's great. It's great. I'm glad. I mean, we know, of course, that Argentines have always been great in football. They have just added the third star to their jersey, right after 78, 86. they have now won the World Cup for the third time. But as you know, they also have a great tradition in the game of polo. And in Casa Fagliano, they have one of the best makers of polo boots in the entire world. And nowadays, they also actually they make all sorts of shoes. I don't know how much of them are simply branded Casa Fagliano. I don't really know if the ready to wear, and other styles of shoes are actually made in Argentina. So I'm not going to vouch for that necessarily, but I know that especially for the reversos, they take custom orders. They make bespoke um, pieces all the time, and they are more familiar with reversos, of course, than many other watches. But at the end of the day, if you give them certain measurements, and if you somehow like that particular styling of the strap, which I think can be glimpsed here. They make them in two-tone. They make them in more simple ways like this. They make them in calfskin. They make them in crop, I think. Cordovan, as you also call it. And they make them also, of course, in a number of different colors. And you would know that Jaeger LeCoultre basically matches them with the dials of the watches. So if, like, the green dial reversos, they match with a dark green, like a hunter green or racing green kind of strap. And you can custom order something similar or something much different from them as well. And of course, it made sense, right? I mean, God bless that marketing executive who came up with this idea in 2011, right? Because, as you know, the history of the Reverso, you probably know, this was a watch made, basically commissioned by British officers who were stationed in the subcontinent, and who, of course, had a particular passion for the game of polo, and they wanted to continue to wear their watches during this sporting activity, but they would get the crystals cracked all the time. And at that time, of course, these crystals were made from glass, and they were much more prone to cracking and breaking and getting smashed. So basically, the Reverso was designed to meet that particular need, where you could simply protect the glass crystal of your watch by flipping over the case. Of course, that provides very little shock protection for the caliber, etc. So it is a story that's rooted part in mythology, part in pragmatics, but that certainly is the origin of the watch. Hey, Meech.
Hey, what's going on, Lord?
You are the proud owner of a Reverso, aren't you?
I wouldn't say proud, but yeah, I am an owner of a Reverso. Yep.
I mean, I did that on purpose. I know you have been trying to offload it for a while now.
Look, I mean, end of the day, I wouldn't mind owning a Reverso. It's just that particular Reverso that it's dog shit. And it doesn't help my case that it's been discontinued, so it is what it is.
Right, but I mean, it's the classic sizing, right? The medium,
It's
basically.
the lady size. As a matter of fact, it's probably the infant size now, considering that they upgraded it to. I think they moved it. So I think technically they moved it up to an official 36 mil now. It's either 36 or 37 mil on paper. Um, and mine would
And
be like more or less like a 34.
Grand Thai, the large size is 42, right?
I don't know, 43, 44.
No. I think 44 is the one they use for the calendar, which is a wide and thick boy. That's like a big boy watch. I can't possibly wear that. I mean, see it here. I just have it as a kind of wrist roll in my shorts here. Not my shorts. I mean, in YouTube shorts. I don't put watches down my shorts. But yeah,
Disgusting, Lord. You're the reason why we can't handle watches anymore. They're display only.
Oh, did I tell you that I was when in New York, I actually went to the Patek Philippe section in Tiffany, and they have gone the same way as Rolex, except more obnoxious. So they now have the cases full of watches, which are display only, but you can't touch them, and they don't bring them out. At least not for the average Joe like me who walks in from the street.
I mean, I get it and I don't get it at the same time. Like, what is the point in essence of having display onlys if the punters cannot put them on the wrist, touch him, feel him, get a feel for the weight, get a feel for how it's going to fit? What is the point of having display onlys? You may as well just stick to the fucking catalog.
Yeah, I mean, exclusivity, basically.
But at the same time, though, I do get it to a degree, though, Lord. I mean, I've seen people like this isn't just in my boutique, but this is just in general, like people who will literally get off the job site. Look, I'm not saying I'm judging per se. I guess you could say I am to a degree, but like guys who come right off the construction site or guys who just don't take the time to clean themselves up and they'll go out in public, And I get sometimes it can't be helped, but I mean, at the same time, you shouldn't be asking. You should be walking into jewelry stores or watch stores and asking, "Hey, can I try this on?" I mean, yeah, I totally understand the theory of just saying, display only. We don't want touching the merchandise.
Well, I mean, again, I'm not denying that people. First of all, I mean, the customer profile is not a singular profile, right? People who can afford luxury watches come from all sorts of different walks of life, very different socioeconomic segments these days, and the way they dress and look, it's not one, right? It's very diverse. But more importantly, I mean, if you're actually worried about that, Tiffany usually, even during the holiday season, it's a pretty self-selective group. Like you certainly won't have someone who has just finished their shift doing manual labor and did not so much as I mean, I don't think that was their concern.
You'd be surprised, though, Lord. It's a fairly common problem, or maybe not so much as a problem, but it's a fairly common thing to see.
I would be even more concerned and more vicious if that's what I thought was their main. I think they were just trying to cultivate basically an atmosphere of exclusivity, because you cannot.
I don't doubt that. I don't doubt that.
You cannot do that with an empty case. You have to show the watches, but hold them. You have to display them, but keep them in reserve. Because otherwise, it's just not as appealing.
Yeah, no, I agree. you're probably more dead on accurate than anything else. But yeah, it's still just fucking annoying. It's just so stupid a fucking game, if you ask me.
Well, Merry Christmas, Meech. What are you doing now since you can't partake of those entertainments and the fine establishments that you usually frequent, or can you? Is the weather?
Um, well, I mean, it wouldn't have mattered. I mean, it could be sunny and 75. It's Sunday, so all gentlemen's clubs are to be officially closed on a Sunday because it is the Lord's Day. Um, but no, I mean, Merry
Even
Christmas to you, Lord.
on
If you
on this
celebrate that thing,
especially, on this Sunday, especially. Speaking of,
exactly, exactly. But no, I mean, like I was telling somebody else. I mean, it's not much. It's modest, but I take the time to cook a 5.7 pound ham, make a fruit salad, do a green bean casserole, make some sweet rolls, and then just sit down and then have a feast and pound down quite a few beers to keep the appetite going. So,
Meech, you realize, I mean, my name, my real name actually sounds like Ebenezer. So it's you know where I stand on this whole holiday. But yes, I do celebrate it with my fellow Americans and friends. It's a nice time of the year, man. I got used to it by now.
it is. I mean, I don't know. Somebody. See, my mother always used to tell me. She said, "The older you get, the less you give a shit about Christmas," and I think that's a dead on accurate assessment. But a lot of people this year just ain't feeling it. After 2 years of the Joe Biden administration putting the American people down, um, the American people are shocked. They've lost hope, and they just don't feel like it's the holidays anymore. They're broke.
I, you know, again, not to not to comment on the politics at all, but going around in New York and a lot of the busy places, a lot of the commercial places, a lot of places where people shop, um, even for people who were shopping, it was a very strange mood. I really felt a particularly joyless season. That's what we are experiencing this year, and of course, I don't think it's a coincidence, and I don't think it's just me either, because actually, again, of all the holiday seasons I spent in this country, this probably is one where I feel pretty good, pretty good. I feel
Yeah,
pretty.
I think that's accurate. Christmas is that one time of year where everyone looks forward to it, and then yeah, it's just there's nothing there. It's just nothing.
Yeah, yeah, and again, it's like you said, I agree. Perhaps little kids get a little more excited, and why not? They are the primary audience in the way that this holiday is celebrated, at least in the US. They get all the nice
Right.
gifts and whatever. But in a way, you live vicariously through that. The practice of gift giving itself, I think, is also very joyful, and it's a lot of fun in and of itself. Especially if you have, I don't know if you have kids of your own, of course, but if you have like nephews and nieces, or like very close friends, pardon me, who have kids, it's fun. It's a lot of fun.
I was actually talking to Ozzy about this after the last show, and I said, and I said, Ozzy, you have to forgive me, but I said, kids freak me the fuck out. I said, like, I'm not comfortable around kids. I don't know what to say to them. You can't talk to them like normal human beings. Like they can't hold a conversation. Can't speak freely around them. Like, I mean, kids freak me out.
Well, I don't deny that. I don't know. It depends. I mean, of course, the way we talk, the way the two of us, especially, we shouldn't be talking the same way around the kids. That's for sure. But
Oh, absolutely.
as um, as a philosophy, I do think that the more you talk to kids like adults, the better. I mean, in the sense that I feel that's better for their development. But then again, I know jack shit since, I'm childless, and proudly so. So I don't know
Well,
the kid.
I was talking to Ozzy again about this, and I said I remember this was like a few years ago, but a buddy of mine, him and his wife were expecting a kid, and of course the wife's got baby fever, she's restless, and we're on our way down to the local bar to grab lunch. Actually,
Hmm.
obviously she can't drink, so anyways, they see this kid, probably no more than 5 years old. I don't know. And he's got this cute little outfit on. He's got his he's got his snow coat on. He's got these really colorful boots. And she leans down and starts talking to him, and he does the same thing. And yet I'm, standing in the corner like a fucking golem, just staring at this kid, And they kind of look at me like I should be like doing the same thing. And I just kind of shrug my shoulders, and, like, I got nothing in common with this kid. Like I don't get why you're talking to this kid. Like I really don't. I don't. And to me, that mind boggles me how adults in general, especially this day and age, can so freely talk to children. Because that can be misconstrued and taken the wrong way very easily nowadays. So I try and keep, not to sound like I'm absolutely terrified from a child, but if there's one that's like in the same grocery aisle as me, I'll go out of my way to avoid them. It's just who I am.
That's wonderful. Hey man, I mean, it's look, I mean, it's not for everyone. I feel, personally, I feel the same way. I don't even know. I'm not hell bent on having children, right? That's never been a project of mine. If it happens, it happens. I'm not necessarily an anti-natalist, but I feel, we have enough kids on this world that need care, and that need families, that need parents, that need someone to, someone to take care of them, basically. So I feel
Right.
it a little self-indulgent from my perspective, again, to go out of my way to reproduce, as if I'm this special snowflake who needs to survive for another generation. It's I'm not too invested in that.
Well, I was telling Ozzy, I said, with all the escorts that I see on a weekly basis, I said, there's a good chance I do have kids running out there. I just don't know about it.
Did you experience that? Do you see sometimes little children who look a little too much like you around?
God, wouldn't that be fucking bizarre? I hope not. I hope not. I mean, Jesus, but wouldn't that be a bizarre fucking trip just to like casually walk into a store or something like that? And like, damn, it's almost a 1-for-1 copy.
Yes, speaking of being terrified, imagine you look into your you walk into your mini me on, like, in the grocery store. Speaking of being terrified, that would be very disconcerting. Oh man. So any news from the day date? Did they get back to you for the repair? I mean, I understand it's really not that time of the year, so you'll still wait a little.
No, it's the problem is I got cucked by this weather essentially. So it's kind of partially I was too lazy to go up there and get it. So when they called me, they said, "Hey, your watch is done." They
Okay.
called me like on a Tuesday, I believe, a Tuesday at 5 o'clock, and they said, "Hey, we're open till 7 o'clock." And I said, with all due respect, I'm not in the mood to take off and make the 3-hour trip all the way up there to collect the watch. I said, ship it to me. And they said, all right, yeah, no problem. And they shipped it out. And of course, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, we got absolutely hit with the most brutal fucking weather, negative 30-degree windshields, 25-mile-an-hour winds. So the day date is currently sitting in a FedEx base station somewhere, collecting dust.
Okay, so it's basically just waiting for the right weather to be delivered. It's even in a warehouse.
Yeah, no, it's in the fucking frustrating part is it's only an hour away from where I live. So and I don't think I'll be able to pick it up tomorrow. I think FedEx will be closed tomorrow in observation of Christmas. So technically it'll be shipped to me by Tuesday here. So yeah, Tuesday we'll find out, and we'll see how things are kind of running.
All right. And if it's, I mean, God forbid, but if it's back to square one, is that first option where they take a return is still available to you, or now that they tried fixing it, will they insist on
Um,
trying to fix it?
so so basically what would happen is they would send it back to Rolex officially. So therefore it would be gone for like 2 to 3 months. Um, in which case what I might do is I might just turn around and go to somebody else and just have them tear it apart and throw it all back together for $850. And just call it a day.
So you can't. The return option is done now since they are actually taking.
Oh, I'm sure I could have that return option. I'm sure I could, but it's. I want the watch. Put it that way. I want the watch regardless.
Okay.
So either way, I'm gonna keep it. It's just a matter of how much money I gotta dump into it, which is kind of the frustrating part. Now, my concern is that, like I stated before, if I give it back to them, they're just gonna throw it in a drawer and wind it up and say, "Oh shit, it's keeping good time," and then they're just gonna send it back to me, and we just go back and forth, and me sending it to them before they send it out to Rolex. So I probably just wouldn't even bother this time around. I'd probably just pay the service fee and get it back, one and done. And yeah, I'd probably be at 23,000 into the watch on paper, but I would still be ahead because considering the watch was selling for 31,000 when it was in production, so I'd still be below retail either way.
No, I'm actually happy to hear this, Mitch, because a lot of times your first experience with this watch, that first impression, if it's not perfect, chances are that it can be sullied and spoiled by this kind of experience. So I'm glad you're not feeling that way. I'm glad you still love the
Oh,
watch.
don't get me wrong, I am, but it's just this watch is too much of a bitch to fucking rebuy again. Because on Chrono 24, yeah, I can pick up a brand new one, 36 mil, but they want what was the last price I seen? I believe they want 39,000 for it. 39,000 for it if you want one that's 36 mil in this configuration, unworn. And there's no point. There's no point in buying it over retail. There's just no. It's just not.
I mean, yeah, my taste skews all the way back to 4 or 5 digits. So I would have gone completely another way, but probably you could always run into that kind of problem. It's that's what happens with anything pre-owned, and of course your particular piece is not necessarily what we would call vintage. It's not even 10 years old, basically.
It's definitely in the vintage catalog. I mean, it's from 2014. It's a true vintage. So comes with the old box style. Comes with the old paperwork. Doesn't even comes with the old card. So
Right. I mean, I would probably have gone with something like this, just to please you a little bit. I won't choose something 4 digit, but old school. 18238. The double quick set has that lemony dial, which is very much like champagne, but maybe a shade brighter. And I love the diamonds on this one. I think with day dates, it's not a must, of course, but I feel like you need you need the extra flourish sometimes, whether it's a stone dial or like I love the burgundy ones. I'm waiting for, because I know Saad is percolating. He's gathering a lot of different pieces now, doing his research, and we're gonna do a special on the day dates, like a nice conversation for an hour, where he brings up very unique models. But I really like the history of the day date, the way, of course, it's just great with the indices and a champagne dial in yellow gold, but there's so much that Rolex has thrown on it, and all of it looks beautiful in its own way. From the semi-precious stone, uh, diamond set, diamond bezel, different finishes on the dial, on the case, wooden dials. It's just the sky is the limit, right? So
Right.
it's an interesting piece always for me. Yeah, and I'm sure these are on their way down as well when I'm talking about the 18238. So that's a decent deal, but could be better. Could be better for sure.
I mean, yeah, but when you're talking rappers jewelry, I think the most you want to spend is about 10 grand.
But why did you spend more than that on yours?
Oh, because mine doesn't have diamonds on it, so it's a pure blood.
Yeah, sure. All right. I mean, I wouldn't want to spend more than 10K on a day date 36 either, but I see your point.
I will say this though. Man, I would really consider, I would even pay over gray market price, if you will, if they reissued the all blacked out dials, where it's just the date and the date complication, and they have what, black, blue, did they even have a red or maroon? I can't remember. But the solid colored dials. I mean, the ones that they did in the mid '80s,
Yeah,
I
the
think those are
Stella.
phenomenal. Yeah.
Yeah, I have actually, for our conversation, I saved one of my absolute favorites here. I'll show you. You will again be reviled a little bit because it is a factory diamond set, but
Yeah, I actually seen this one. I actually seen this one in my Instagram suggestion. Amongst all the Instagram fitness models and entertainers, I seen this watch sitting in the crowd, and I gotta admit, I don't typically agree with all the rappers jewelry, but I think in this context, it actually is very well done. I
right.
just don't think traditional hour markers would work with this watch, and I think in this combo, the diamonds are an absolute must to complete this particular look.
Oh wow.
And I love it. I love it. I genuinely do love the blood red dial, the gold. It all flows together nicely.
I mean, Momentum Dubai actually has usually a steady stream of day dates coming through, and you can see here, there's like a white gold with a more coral red diamond set again. That's also 4 digit 1803. You have kind of a candy apple red here, again in white gold. Um, you have a couple of models that we looked at before with the Eye of Horus style, kind of a guilloche decoration that emanates from the date. and both the day and the date is executed in Arabic here, Eastern Arabic numerals for the date and Arabic for the day. A kind of like a cobblestone like of design too.
Right.
Again, I'm usually not too hot on diamond set bezels either, but with this watch it somehow works because it's so ornate, right? The decoration of the dial itself also, in terms of its geometrics, kind of goes with the way that the diamonds are cut on the dial and on the bezel. So it somehow makes sense. I don't know if you know what I mean, but it's a beautiful watch in its own way.
Exactly. It does what it needs to do without being obnoxious.
But shouldn't a day date be obnoxious a little bit? Isn't that part of the point?
It is, but in white gold, I feel like that's the opposite. I mean, I feel like if you're gonna get a day date in white gold, it needs to do the opposite of being obnoxious.
But you see, this is where your point makes sense. We have here a beautiful, again, yellow gold 5-digit day date 108 1038 sorry 18038, and as gorgeous as it is, it looks a little dull compared to all these other ones we were looking at that had the diamond set dials, and somehow with the Stella dials it really brings it out, right? The earlier
I think that dial needs to be the right shade of red too. I mean that bright red is a bit off-putting. I think the blood red dials are kind of what makes everything come together correctly. It's
or
just a bolder, more. It's just a bolder color. It makes it work. It makes it happen.
this one is great too. It's kind of like a maroon or oxblood, not quite brown, not quite red, but this is quite good too. This is quite bright, but on the white gold, I think it's a nice contrast.
It adds that pop of flair. It does add that pop of obnoxiousness, if you will.
Very nice. I like this design too. Speaking of all the different dial patterns and materials that come on the day date, this is like an argyle type of diamond pattern that you sometimes see on old school sweaters and socks. It's very nice. There's like a rubellite, I think. No, grossular. Okay.
Yeah, it looks very nice. It looks very aristocrat type, old money, if you will.
I mean, again, this is an obnoxious day date, right? You have the diamonds on the dial, you have the semi-precious stone dial itself, you have the barked finish on the center links, as well as the bezel. So it's a little too much, but it has a certain air about it. I agree with you on that. Yeah, this.
I wish more brands would do purple dials, just in general.
Right. Nick is here. Hey, nice to see you, Nick. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas. Purple, yeah, purple is not done very often. I mean, you can see blurple, right? These sorts of blue dials that turn into a shade of purple from a certain angle. Of course, there's a whole genre of blue dial submariners that have turned purple. But yeah, purple is not very common. Deep shades of red are not very common. Yeah, green used to be more rare. Now it's the new blue. Basically, everyone does a green dial these days. So the time will come. The time will come. This is a very soft, salmon pink kind of thing. I'm not sure if it goes well. I think it could have.
That's a girl's watch, though, Lord. That's a man should not be wearing pink watches.
It could be. I think it could be nicer on a white metal. Like a white gold, maybe. It could be better, but on the yellow gold, it looks completely off to me. And I love, I really love the salmon dial myself, but that one just doesn't work. What do you think about this?
I've seen this one, and I find it very interesting. Is this on white gold? If I remember correctly, I've seen one in yellow gold. I could have sworn I've seen one in yellow gold, and I think it looks better in yellow. But I love it. This really does scream old money. This is a guy. This is the type of watch you'd see on an accountant. 80 years old. He drives like a fucking Toyota Corolla. He lives in a fucking 1-bedroom apartment still, but yet he's swimming in Kohl's cash. This is the type of guy who can just buy you out in $100 bills, no problem.
I certainly like the image that you invoked. But yeah, it's again, I don't think, does Rolex nowadays do wooden dials? I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
Probably not, because I would say in general, no. Because Rolex wants to create this illusion that they're eco-friendly, right? Every brand nowadays, we're just not talking Rolex. Every brand, every Fortune 500 company wants to come off as they're eco-friendly, and using wood watch dials, I feel like, would be taboo for Rolex, perhaps. Although it's kind of funny too, because you have watch brands that are literally making their entire cases and their bracelets out of wood. So I wouldn't rule it out completely.
Yeah, I don't think they do. I'm just trying to make sure, because in the sense that there are always things that are certainly not on the website and that are not even in the catalog sometimes, but can be ordered. So I don't want to make any definitive statements, but I don't think you can, they make any wooden dials these days. And it might have to do something with sustainability, but even before these things had become fashionable, I think Rolex had already stopped, and I don't know what the problem was. I'm sure there was an issue with the materials. It must be because the dials are cut very thin, and it must be very difficult to achieve the kind of stability that you would need on a watch dial with a relatively delicate slice of wood. Again, I mean, this is not an expert opinion at all, but I have an idea of how these things work. So maybe it was that kind of reason, but now it's certainly not coming back, as for all the reasons that you have mentioned. What do you think about this one, like a smoked or fumé?
I actually like it, and you see very few brands do this because it is tricky to accomplish. But I think Audemars Piguet did a very good job of doing their smoke dials. But in general, I like it. And yes, I think this is one of the rare cases where you do need Puff Daddy's diamonds in there to really bring it to life. Because if you did just standard white gold hour markers in there, it wouldn't deliver the same. Yeah, diamonds are forever. And diamonds are a girl's best friend. I don't know what's doing on this gentleman's watch. It belongs back to his wife. But yeah, looks great.
Fantastic. So let's see. I really like his stock. And I like this appreciation of the president in all its forms. From a design perspective, what do you think about the Oyster Quartz day dates?
I hear the word quartz and I immediately fucking look down on it. It's just not a worthy watch.
That's why I tried to say, like, let's push the word quartz, or forget for a second that they actually have a circuit board inside them.
I mean, from a design perspective, like you'd mentioned before, I don't hate it. It wouldn't be my first choice, but I don't hate it.
Mm-hmm.
I know your friend your newly acquired friend, your BFF there, the original OC, does have a oyster quartz in gold, and he thoroughly enjoys it.
Yeah, OC is certainly not my BFF. Might not even be my friend. I think the jury is still out on that. I judge people by the company they keep, and I don't like the company he keeps.
To be fair, me and OC share the same company, though.
Same thing can be said about you, except I actually like you, so I do consider you a friend.
But I mean, I just don't think I don't think it's a bad design choice. I just, I don't know. I just, it wouldn't be my first pick overall. I hate the style, by the way. I'm not a fan of the Shrek green. I fucking hate it. They fucking layered diamonds on it. Fuck out of here.
I was gonna say Granny Smith, but this is much froggier. Or Shrek. Shrek is a good choice of words. Yeah, this is certainly not my favorite.
And the dial won't even look regardless of what gold you threw it on, whether it be yellow or white.
No.
It doesn't look, the dial is just fucking hideous.
Yeah, and I mean even the diamonds can't save it.
Fuck, this beer tastes gross.
What do you think about these sorts of this is a date chest, of course, but they have done similar things with day dates too. Some of the semi-precious stones they use, they'd rather not interrupt the dial, so it doesn't have the indices, just a few lines of writing.
Aren't those dials considered to be extremely rare just in general? It doesn't matter what it's on. Date just Rolex, whatever. They're very rare to come by, right? So I mean,
yes.
At that point, I don't think you could really argue that much. If the watch looks like it's in great condition, I'm not a fan of the cheap and nasty leather strap, but hey, bygones be bygones. I think it's an exceptional watch. I think it's one of those watches that you have to grab it with both hands, buy it, throw it on the credit card, and come up with the answers later.
Yeah, and it is, by the way, I mean, they don't slap the lapis dial on any old date chest. Of course, this is actually white gold, white gold case, white gold bezel, of course, which is more common to come by. I imagine it. I'm not gonna say it must have, because with Rolex there's always an exception, but it probably did come on a matching Jubilee bracelet. But then who knows? These watches at a certain point in time could be ordered just to your liking, and bracelets were completely optional. You could choose whatever you want. The whole matching the bracelet thing came much later and relatively close to our day.
I like that bluesy though. That bluesy looks fucking dirty as shit.
This one?
Yeah, the solid gold. I mean, look at that. The fucking, would you call that toffee? I don't know what the fuck you call a dial, but it looks fucking fantastic with the blue and solid yellow gold.
The story actually is that that's how. I mean, again, it's completely apocryphal. It might be completely made up, but some people say that Rolex came up with the root beer dial being influenced by the particular way certain dials have aged, right? So this may be one of the origins of the root beer dial, in its sunburst finish at the very least. God damn, I missed my Rolexes, by the way. I should go pick them up. Yeah, I spent. What do you think about that, Meech? I spent more than 3 weeks now without any of my Rolexes, and I survived, but barely.
Yeah, no, it's hard. It's hard. I've got 3 watches in the safe now. A Day-Date sitting in FedEx locations, which is probably not the greatest, safest location for it, and one on the wrist. So, it's hard staying away from your collection for so long.
I mean, admittedly, parts, but I made the conscious choice of leaving the Rolexes and taking everything else more or less. Not everything, but a lot of everything else. I left some of the Seikos behind as well.
Yeah, I wouldn't make a big fuss about getting those back, honestly.
No, they were lying around in the house anyways. They weren't really stored anywhere. That's how
Yeah, it's nothing lost, Lord. It's nothing lost. They're just Seikos. They're just Seikos.
Love them, but you're absolutely right.
They're no different than a Grand Seiko.
What about the Sodalite?
I'm not a fan, quite frankly. I'm just.
No?
I don't know what it is. I don't hate them. I just don't like them. I don't know.
So in a way, you made a very conscious choice by going with a plain champagne dial, basically, on the yellow gold. I think, right? You'd rather do
Yes.
that than...
Yes and no, because mine got loom on it, so I didn't realize that they'd actually stopped doing loom. And yes, I could have gotten the Roman numerals. So there is actually one on David SW. And he's actually surprisingly he's not too fucking far off. So he wants 25.7, I believe, for 2011 with box papers and everything else in between. And his has Roman numerals on it. And it's a 36 mil. And it looks good, I'll admit. As much as it kind of chips my gears a little bit, I think Diego is right to a degree. If you have the option, I think the numeral is the way to go. But the loom is so fucking it's so irrelevant on a Day-Date because it's so piss poor that it hardly even matters. But I just kind of stick with the logic of keep everything as factory as you can, because the moment you try and flip out of it, that's when the troubles begin. Whether you threw diamonds on it, whether you threw an engraving on it, whether you swap the bezels, dials, whatever, that's when you're going to come into major problems and you're going to create unnecessary headaches for yourself.
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't think there is one way. I think the way the new Roman numerals are done on the Day-Dates, I like them, but yeah, not sure. There are so many different ways that the Day-Dates have been done historically, that I don't think there is one way, and whether I would choose one over the other. I certainly don't like the ones with luminous markers, so I'll be very outright and honest about that. But something like this, I would not necessarily choose Roman numeral over that, even if it were an option.
Yeah, no, it is what it is here. I mean, it looks great, and I think the only way you can actually make the style look good is in white gold. I feel like this would look like dog shit in yellow.
Yeah, it would look like a strange watch, but I think with the white metal, it's strangely appealing. Let's see. There were a few more interesting examples that are a little different. Oh, he did that flex here, where he has a lot of them all together.
Man, those green dials just look too fucking ugly, honestly. I mean, everything else looks fucking great, but those green dials are just from another planet, my guy.
Yeah, I think the new the new green on the yellow gold doesn't look so bad, but I mean in this picture, if you told me, you know, choose three watches that you would eliminate immediately, it will be the three green pieces.
Right.
Absolutely. Without without the shadow of a doubt. Wow. That's a nice slice of wood.
Yeah, it looks great. I do think it looks better in yellow gold, but nonetheless, it's a very unique dial.
Let me see if he has, I mean, all the way back I'm sure he has at least one example like that, but maybe in the recent past he may have had.
Get off me! Get the fuck off me!
What's going on?
Oh, sorry, it's the cat.
Oh, here it is. It's a darker burwood.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of it actually. I'm not a. If you could swap the dials, I think it would be better,
Okay.
honestly.
So I mean, you would want basically that particular birch on the yellow gold one, on the one.
Yeah, I think it looks better. Even just chocolate dial looks out of place on that yellow gold, quite frankly.
Okay, let's see what else going back whether it has. We have gone a year back. Look, Happy New Year 2022. Wow. How
Yeah,
time.
that's right around the corner too. Fuck me dead.
Ooh, this is one of my favorite watches of all time. Um, this is the Biblos edition of the Chronomètre Bleu. Um, they're even more rare with these Eastern Arabic numerals, but they have done an edition with, they have done most of the edition with the traditional Arabic numerals of F.P. Jean, and these were released to celebrate the opening of the Beirut boutique in Lebanon, um, who is owned by the which is owned by the Sfair family, as in the famous collector um, Claude Sfair. Yeah, it's a beautiful piece. I love that
So,
arabesque cutout.
yeah, I do thoroughly enjoy the different types of language styles. I mean, obviously add different values to them. Yeah, I'm just waiting for somebody to come out with a braille dial, like a braille dial uh, for the uh, for the impaired on eyesight. Yeah, I think that would actually be quite unique.
Right, and I'm sure they can, you know, I'm sure they can do something on the crystal, right? So it will, you know, something that might not impair also the waterproofness, watertightness of the case and the dustproofness, etc. Um, I mean, of course, a chiming watch is the best for anyone who is visually impaired, right? A minute repeater would be the ultimate piece, but
Right.
they run pretty yeah, they run pretty high. You know, you can usually rather get a house, you know, uh, take care of the shelter situation before you get a minute repeater. So, oh, this is great too. This is the monopusher Cartier Tortue chronograph, and it is, man, this is absolutely amazing. Um, wow, I love that oversized Roman numeral at 12 as well. White gold, blue writing on the dial. I know you have moved away from Cartier, but they have done some beautiful things, um, especially in that CP collection, the private.
Yeah, I do miss Cartier, but I just don't trust them enough. They're
No,
made in China.
that relationship of trust is completely broken on your end.
Yeah, I'd never go back to Cartier, honestly.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm not gonna, name names because he would be someone who is really invested in his privacy, and I can't give many details because of that too, because there are only a handful of people like that. But I was just talking to a collector who has uh, ordered for a while now custom pieces from Cartier. So he's that segment of the customer. Um, has a lot of historic examples, important examples as well, of the iconic models, and he has sworn off the brand too. Apparently, it's not just the average customer and the kind of problems that you have faced in terms of the quality of the calibers inside the watch, what they're actually doing to service the movements, if anything at all, because like you said, they might be just swapping them out with something else that they have refurbished. Um, Apparently, the problems with customer care are a little endemic, and are not only um, at the entry level, basically.
Yeah, they are a pain in the ass to try and get a hold of. I'll just leave it at that.
What about the legendary Tridor, the 3 gold execution of the day date? Have you ever been into that?
I just don't know enough about them. Put it that way. I can't make a decisive decision on them. They're definitely funky. I'll give them that. They're
Mhm.
unique, but I can't say much else.
Yeah, I'm myself never too hot on it. I kind of like that um, accent that it gives to the center links. To me, it's like some exotic kind of ammunition. That's how it looks. You know, this combination of white, yellow, and pink gold on the center link of the president bracelet. Kind of looks like bullets, so I like that. But otherwise, I feel there's just too much going on the watch usually. Um, and I don't even know if that's true actually, because it's at once too much and too little. Because otherwise, it's basically a white gold day date with a yellow gold bezel, right? It is.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's funky. It's weird, but I can't make a decision on it. It's definitely you're definitely gonna have a unique watch. Put it that way.
Mhm. Ah, the old flame in a different execution, of course, but
So yeah, I loved it. I love it, and I thought about buying it. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's in white gold, so the price is fucking ridiculous. But its size is what its size is what kind of rules me out. But
yeah.
yeah, yeah, but there was a time I would have considered buying it.
It's a big piece. The Santos Dumont, the more dressier version, and this is certainly one that was a collaboration of the Dubai Watch Club with Cartier. Again, one of the things that Cartier does and has done quite well, again, at least in the first execution, with watch clubs and groups and even single orders throughout the world that they are willing to make for their customers, as long as the larger design of the watch is coherent and aligns with the established visual codes and design traditions of the brand itself. So having something as simple as a different color of dial, namely salmon here, and Eastern Arabic numerals in a deep burgundy, that's something they can easily accommodate. And I actually like the contrast between the polished bezel and the satin brushed surface of the case as well. It's a nice touch. But yeah, it's a big boy.
Yeah. Well, Lord,
Yes, sir.
I'm going to get ready to go to bed here. I've got like 2 more beers I'm gonna pound down here. Then it's off to bed for myself. But it has been a pleasure, no doubt. I do wish you happy holidays here for whatever it is that you take part in. And yeah, so on and so forth.
Hey, man. Merry Christmas. Nice to have you on, as always.
Yeah, take care.
Take care, man. Yeah, this is a very nice stock, and this is Cartier Pasha 2575, made for the UAE Armed Forces. The Pasha is a slow burner in a way. I know many people have very strong feelings against it. Of course, it has the Gérald Janta pedigree. It's a Janta design, just like Audemars Piguet Royal Oak is a Janta design, just like Patek Philippe Nautilus is a Janta design, just like the Universal Genève Paul Rauter is a Janta design. Anyway, but I think it is finally getting the recognition that it truly deserves. I know it's a little more quirky because it's a round watch, but the very aestheticized round watch has the special Vendôme lugs. A lot of times has, of course, the crown guard is always an interesting execution. I really love when it has these sorts of sporty details, like the lozenge hands, the big date. I feel, again, it's one of those, for me, Cartier's dress watches are, of course, definitive. That's what you look for. You look for beauty. You look for design. You look for aesthetics for Cartier. So when it comes to their sportier watches or the sports watches, whether we're talking about the Santos or Pasha, I like the way they blend a lot of the looks that we associate with dressier pieces, but put a sporty spin or put a dynamic spin on it, and that's what I always loved about the Pasha as well. Not enough to own one so far, but I'm sure the right deal would come along at a certain point. And it's hard to say goodbye to Meech. He will be back. Yeah, these are great as well. This particular shade of the salmon dial, love it. Okay, we need to save some of these for the special broadcast with Saad, but I feel like I won't be able to resist. In the meantime, please hit the like button if you have been learning from this conversation, from this presentation. If you have enjoyed it so far, please hit the like button. It really does help. It gives a little more exposure, a little bit of a push. I have been on for about 2 hours now. I think I might go for a little while longer. I don't know. I will see. But it will be great to field some of your questions. It would be great to have some more of you join the panel. But in either case, I can, of course, go back to some of the pieces and some of the things that I have seen on the trip to New York, because I've accumulated a lot of this archive over the last few days. I've been releasing some of the videos. A lot of them are from the Philips watches preview, and I wanted to share this George Daniels, which is really an end game piece. I mean, it's so simple and gorgeous, and of course, sold for, I think, more than $800,000, including the buyer's premium. So it's really a very different level, of course, of watchmaking, of watches, but it's a beautiful piece, and in a way, I think it's a very important historic piece whenever you are in the presence of a George Daniels watch. This is an anniversary piece, of which they released 35 to celebrate the 35th anniversary of the coaxial escapement. So when it comes to George Daniels as the pioneer of independence today, he really was the guy in the 20th century that made it a thing for one person to really do everything, right? This is not how independents operate today. This is not necessarily how watchmakers have operated in the past either, because a lot of the famous Swiss makers have always cultivated a system that they called établissage, which basically brings together the expertise and abilities of a number of different makers, various different artisans who work on separate components of the watches that are then put together. That can be a single person who puts together the watches and finishes things off. But traditionally, watchmaking has rarely been about one or two people, which is the case in George Daniels, especially in his collaboration with his apprentice, Roger Smith, who is still with us, of course. But Dr. George Daniels was certainly the pioneer in bringing into the imaginary this idea of soul watchmaker operating on his own, or at least operating with in this sort of collaboration that he had with Roger Smith. And Roger Smith continues, of course, that tradition. That's why his watches are extremely limited, and that's why his watches are so rare and so hard to come by, so hard to even have the privilege to get on a waiting list. Christian Klings, the German watchmaker, practiced like that. I don't think he makes watches anymore either. But it's certainly an interesting take, and it has had a lot to bring a certain kind of cachet, prestige, and even simply interest to independent watchmakers that were simply neglected for quite some time, even until 10 years ago. And certainly there wasn't as much interest in independent makers 5 years ago. So yeah, this was certainly a beautiful piece, and very simple piece. Again, nothing ostentatious about it. 18 karat yellow gold, beautiful proportions, but every detail is so beautifully done. Dr. George Daniels, of course, being literally the person who wrote the book on the art of Breguet, has here a beautifully balanced watch that employs all the recognizable aesthetic details and design codes that you historically found on Breguet pocket watches and that were carried over in the Daniel Roth, Michel Parmigiani era of Breguet for wristwatches as well. It has the continuous running seconds at 5 o'clock and the pointer date at 7. And as you see, both of them are decorated with a different pattern, which is, again, a little different from the center of the dial, but certainly different from the barley corn design that frames the main dial in the form of a crescent. The double-stepped case is, of course, a classic, and the movement itself is very beautiful and simple as well. We can take a look at that, I think, as well. I'm sure I have some footage, but since I haven't processed the movement, and I'm sure the glare would be insufferable, so I will just give you it from here, and you can see how, in fact, the movement is numbered, and that's hand carved, coaxial escapement, Daniels, and there is actually, I want to see if we can take a glimpse of that. No. Of course, speaking of independent watchmakers, this is the pink gold version of that first generation Datograph, which is Arlan Gonzunez's flyback chronograph. That matte black dial is gorgeous. The watch itself has a lot of a lot of features that can be considered sporty in a way from um, the big date display to, of course, the tachometer scale on the periphery of the dial, the loomed hands. Uh, but what I really like about the original is, first of all, the proportions, right? It's a slimmer case and it's a smaller case. Um, of course, it lacks the power reserve, but for me, that's not a deal breaker at all. It still has the iconic aspect of a Lange watch, which is the big date, the oversized date display, right? And I kind of love how those um, Roman numerals sit in that triangle, right? You only have them at 2, 6, and 10, and I think that is a people love drawing that perfect isosceles triangle in Lange 1. You had two triangles in this that sit perfectly together, right? One which you can draw to connect the three Roman numerals, and one which you can draw between the two chronograph registers and the oversized date display, and they sit together so well too. So I think the dial of this watch is so perfectly balanced that you don't really need much. You certainly don't need the power reserve indicator. I think these were beautiful the way they were first done. And of course, the L 951, as the movement that uh, opened the new chronograph era. It's a story I told here many times, but I can tell it again. Certainly, when it came out in 1999, when A. Lange & Söhne came out with the Datograph, and of course their in-house caliber, which was L 951.1. All of these other makers were still using chronograph calibers, of which the base they were still sourcing from elsewhere. Usually, and this is something that I love talking about as well, usually the Lemania CH27. There's nothing wrong with that practice. There's more than one way of skinning a cat, so to speak, even though I don't like that visual image. But let's stick with it. But certainly the way that this movement was put together, the way it was designed, the way it was expressed architecturally, layer by layer, as if to give you the image of an entire urban landscape, was something quite impressive. And of course, the fact that Lange actually has some hand finishing on each and every component of this piece that has 40 jewels and more than 400 parts was in and of itself impressive, right? The 4 gold chatons that are screwed in with rubies directly set in them. Of course, the swan neck regulator, the freehand engraved balance cock, etc. All these elements of Lange movements that have become signature. All those components that have become signature elements, and of course, in a hand-wound chronograph, movements, there's no rotor that might cover these components. There's also no, three-quarter plate of the alloy they call German silver that might cover them up. So everything is laid out for you to see, admire, and enjoy. So that's a pretty special piece, and it doesn't surprise me at all that this is a piece that Philippe Dufort wears in pink gold. He always jokingly says that he got the pink gold because he couldn't afford the platinum, and I know for a fact that Roger Smith has one as well, and that is in platinum. So perhaps business has been a little better for Roger Smith. The 5196 is a Patek Philippe Calatrava reference that I really like. But in this particular expression, it's even nicer. I love the two-tone silver dial. As you can see, it's a brighter silver at the center, a little darker on the outside. The Breguet numerals are just great, and they really fit the vibe of the watch, which itself is very thin. This is a beautiful dress watch, 37 millimeters, and Patek in this case has even foregone the exhibition case back, which gave them the chance to make it even thinner. 5196 in platinum is in many ways still a sleeper. I think it's the kind of watch that might gain in value in the next decade or so. So be on the lookout for that. The Voutilainen 28 or 28 was certainly a delight. Again, you have a two-tone dial here. In this case, of course, you have it in guilloche, which is an art that Voutilainen's manufacturer certainly masters. And this again as a piece that has all the classic elements of a dress watch, but also has certain aspects to it that make it seem more dynamic, more sporty, and even youthful. Of course, the dial color and the way that the guilloche decoration is applied as if it is emanating from that center of the watch has a lot to do with it. The Arabic numerals at 3912 has something to do with it. The particular expression of the palm hands, that again, it's like it's like the bird's beak, kind of like Observatoire, but not as large on the hour hands. And again, you have a beautiful balance between the power reserve, which fans out from 12 o'clock, and the running seconds as well. And of course, the Wu-Tang emblem in the middle. I think that's what they can call this particular Voutilainen 28. This should be the Wu-Tang edition. It's a beautiful watch. I love this piece. I think this one was sold, I was trying to check that out, 189,000. Yeah. I mean, the dial expression might be one of a kind, so certainly again, for all intents and purposes, it's a very dressy piece with those teardrop lugs. Um, it's a white metal, but it's also platinum, so it's very severe. But a lot of what goes on in the dial, I think, makes it much more dynamic than it could have been. Plenty of loom for the kind of watch as well. That was an example of Daytona Beach with the Chrysoprase dial, which was again a beautiful, beautiful piece with the uh, lizard skin strap in the matching color in white gold. These were released around the turn of the millennium with the introduction of the Caliber 4130, which was Rolex's first um, for the Daytona. And they weren't particularly hot or popular at the beginning, but they have somehow caught on. Hey, Tim G, nice to see you, man. And nowadays they sell for really crazy amounts on auction. This one almost went for 70,000. That weekend earlier in December. The Snoopy is a great watch. This is the latest piece, the Silver Snoopy Award 50th anniversary. I think it has just the right amount of blue. Hey, if you have a good relationship with an Omega retailer, an authorized dealer, or boutique where they can get this watch for you at the list price, I think it's well worth it. I think it's a very unique watch. It's a very, very beautiful watch, and it has that quirky mechanical animation on the back, which you might also like. But there's already a lot going on the dial that makes it very special and very striking. I was in Bücher on the Fifth Avenue, and I, of course, immediately went down to the pre-owned section. There was an Audemars Piguet Royal Oak 5402, so first reference, but in D series, which was a nice watch, but not a particularly interesting watch, not the most interesting example of that reference for sure. But this is a great watch, a very rare watch, 5513 in the so-called 369 or Explorer dial configuration. So you get not only one, but two iconic Rolex models in a single package. These were made for a couple of different early Submariner references, but for a very short run for the reference 5513 in the 60s with this dial configuration. I think there are a few mil-spec ones that were also supplied in this configuration, but they appear, again, very rarely in the markets. When they're in stellar condition, they sell for a lot of money. This wasn't necessarily the case for this. It is on a much later bracelet. The dial itself is far from perfect. I think it has a very warm and undeniably charming patina, but that doesn't necessarily mean much. I like it, but it's certainly not the best example I've come across. Still very beautiful and something you don't necessarily expect to see every day. So this was really a very high point for me on a random occasion in New York. Again, won't happen in many other cities, I'm sure. this was great, not only because of the particular watch, but I will post more from this trip. Chopard just opened a new boutique in New York, and that's on Fifth Avenue as well. And it's a gorgeous place. Um, and downstairs they have an entire floor basically just for watches, and they actually have an entire case of LUC pieces. Um, Again, they have a great boutique at South Coast Plaza. Everyone at South Coast Plaza boutique for Chopard, especially Jean Louis, who is the manager of the store, has always treated me really well. They do have great stock and they show me everything, but this place was at another level. They had an entire case of dozens of LUC watches. I don't think I have seen so many Chopard LUC watches at the same time, but they also had the new green dial. Um, the green dial in steel as well. I think in pink gold it's particularly great. It's Thomas. It's on Fifth Ave. I can find the address again, but it's on Fifth Ave, and it's not too far away from Tiffany or Bücher, by the way. Um, and I don't know what not happening means, but tell me, Thomas, which watch are you asking in terms of the list price, so I can go back and find that. If it's the silver Snoopy, I think list price is not too not prohibitive at all. Should be less than 10K, I think. 9,600 apparently for the list price for the silver Snoopy. 50th anniversary. Um, yeah, that's an amazing dial, and goes so well with the pink gold case. Um, yeah, I'm not sure again. Sometimes these new age, 5N pink gold or Rolex's Ever Rose, to me seem a little too severe, very coppery. But again, I mean, it's not necessarily my favorite metal. I like white metal. I'm not against precious metal at all. I'm not a stainless steel exclusive person, but I feel the modern pink gold is a little too severe for me. I was never a huge yellow gold fan to begin with. Um, so I do love white gold and platinum, of course, but who doesn't, I guess. This is the D series from that Bücher, and you can kind of see how the patina on the blue dial gives it that purple look in a lot of angles, but also sometimes simply a slate gray look as well. Yeah, it's a beautiful piece in its original form, in its original design, the 5402 Audemars Piguet Royal Oak Jumbo. It's a great watch. I would love to have one of these someday. Hopefully, it will happen. This was the Asprey Anderson collaboration with those stylized lugs, pink gold case, the the co-branding beautifully done on that unique pattern, which reminds you of the kind of guilloche decorations that are very distinctive of Asprey, that they do on crystals, etc. And here, that is beautifully rendered on the on the proprietary blue gold of Andes and Genève. Of course, again, the world time is beautifully chosen for this sort of complication. The A for Andersen is beautifully done there, and it takes the place of both Geneva and Paris, of course, on the city ring. The city ring itself is turned by this very tactile secondary crown at 9 o'clock that's recessed into the case. And you can just use your finger, and the A that is on that crown is the A of Asprey. So the watch combines elements from both brands pretty well. It's a very elegant piece. It has both of the signatures on the dial. And again, they are beautifully done on the guilloche, and they seem to be floating rather than simply being set on an entire block, which is what most brands would have done. So I really appreciate that piece. Yeah, this is also, again, Thomas, it's a pretty pricey piece, the Heure du Monde. It's about $70,000, just like the other Andes and Genève World Time we were looking at. This was great. This is something to experience, and it is something I experienced in the Chopin Boutique on 5th. So there's a lot of things going on this watch. I'm not going to go through every detail of it, but this is one of those pieces that has that sapphire monoblock construction that they have. So the gong is of the same piece of the sapphire crystal as is the crystal covering the face of the watch. The hammers are in mirror polished stainless steel, which you can see here from the face of the watch at any rate. And this watch is also a tourbillon. And the tourbillon has a beautiful sapphire bridge that is, of course, chosen to, if you excuse me the pun, resonate with the distinctive aspect of the construction of this watch, which is that sapphire monoblock build. That gives a very special timbre to the sound as well. Certainly gives a lot of volume to the chiming to begin with, but I feel like, if you have listened to a few different chiming watches, if you have been in the presence of some striking watches, minute repeaters, you will quickly realize that every brand, in a way, if they have some sort of consistency, have a particular tone. For example, Patek usually chimes like church bells, which can be really attractive if that's what you're looking for. This LUC Chopin, especially their sapphire monoblock construction, it chimes like the clinking of glass, right? You know, as if you are in some sort of fancy cocktail party and everyone is toasting on something, or you know, someone is calling your attention, you know, clinking on the glass with, you know, kindly with a knife or something. But that's how this one sounds like to me. And the power reserve is quite incredible because, you know, between the tourbillon and the minute repeater you need a lot, but at full charge, this can apparently, not that you would need it, uh, but it can basically chime out the hour at 12:59, which is basically the longest sequence, about 12 times. So that's a very strong power reserve for this kind of piece, and that's of course a very different segment of a watch. That's $350,000 or something uh, at the retail. Um, and this was one of my absolute favorites as well. Everyone was going crazy about that Cartier crash at the same Philips auction, but I really loved this 2020 Tank Centré limited edition in pink gold. The dial is amazing. I really couldn't capture it that well. The viewing room conditions, again, were perfect for inspecting the watches in person, but certainly not great for capturing them the best way. Certainly, I didn't do a great job on some of these. This is one of the cases, you know, where you have brilliant but also subtle dark brown sunburst kind of dial on this pink gold case, which is itself very beautifully curved, you know, almost sensual, and it sits so well on the wrist. Such a beautiful piece. That's Cartier crash, by the way, from this auction is said to be fake, which is a huge thing. I don't know what's going on with that. Banzi's Shoedown says that's a lot of complications, a lot of energy and power reserve. Yeah, it's very impressive. The LUC Chopard Tourbillon Full Strike is really an amazing piece. Great work. A few other pieces that I had a chance to try. This one is the Daniel Roth Le Sentier. This is a piece that I tried on that belonged to another collector who was at Asprey with me. It's Spanish Rob. You would also know him as Double Wristing. And Double Wristing / Spanish Rob is the person behind the loved Patek. He was the Tiffany & Co. employee who got a 5711 that was Tiffany co-branded on the dial and wore it everywhere. And unfortunately later got it stolen, which is really sad. But he had this beautiful piece on that day, which is the integrated bracelet version of Daniel Roth's beautiful time and date model, Le Sentier, named, of course, after the location of his workshop of his manufacture. And this leans hard on what is the most distinctive design element of a Daniel Roth watch, that doubled ellipsocurvex shape, and multiplies it on the integrated bracelet. Rob called it in an endearing way the Lego bracelet, and I kind of like that. But this is a very, again, this is a great piece that brings together somehow a lot of elegance and a lot of dynamism into a single package, which is something that I really appreciate. Great watch. Great watch. And again, it's not a coincidence, right? You know, it's something that is designed by the person who taught us how a Breguet wristwatch should look. So those Roman numerals on a Breguet frosted hour track is part of that signature, and so is that Gaudron guilloche on the dial, which reminds me of some elegant Dupont cigar lighters, and the integrated bracelet look actually fits really well. This particular Le Sentier. They also look great in precious metals and leather straps too, don't take me wrong. But in stainless steel on this integrated Lego bracelet, it was an amazing piece. And still a great deal as well, by the way, in the secondary market. I would certainly recommend to be on the lookout for that. I talked a little bit about this watch. This is the Czapek Quai de Berck in the smaller version, in the smaller Revolution case, with the Guilloche Ricochet dial in aqua blue. I was actually being confused a little bit the last time we were talking about it. This is actual guilloche, whereas they have a new execution of the similar pattern that they call flanque, which goes with a special version of the blue. And that's actually the one that's the sapphire blue on that goes through different kinds of processes, including the enamel setting that gives it its unique hue, and that is not necessarily hand guilloche, but this is hand guilloche, and this is again a watch that I really appreciate in its balance of very elegant, dressier, even formal elements, with a few, energetic aspects that elevate the watch to a totally different level. To me, this is Czapek in general is one of the exciting brands that are doing something new and doing something of their own in so many levels. And I find it a little unjust, and they're partly responsible for it themselves, that they have been thrown into the public, recognition with their sports integrated bracelet watch with the Antarctique, which is fine, but I think they do so many other things so beautifully that they deserve a different kind of attention, and perhaps not doing great justice to themselves. Of course, this is the Tank Américain of my friend St. Peter, and I'm sitting with him. Those are his hands gesticulating in the background. This watch wears beautifully as well. I do prefer the more elongated, allongé shape of the Centre, but the Americain certainly stands its ground, certainly can play its part in the right collection. And yeah, I was surprised how well this video came out, considering how dark that bar was. Yeah, Le Sentier or Chapek, they both have a Salmon dial, which I really appreciate. But yes, guys, I think I will go for another 15 minutes and then close. Merry Christmas, happy holidays. I'm sure we will have more time to celebrate other holidays and the coming of the new year in the next few days. So I look forward to that. But yes, in the meantime, we have another 15 minutes or so. So if you want me to address anything, if you have any questions, if you have any demands, requests, feel free to send them via Super Chat. Or if you simply want to say something, hey, maybe express your appreciation for something that I've done today or something that I've been consistently doing on this channel, feel free. But I'll talk watches for another 10 minutes or so and then close. Another relatively rare Rolex, something that you don't see every day and that I was really happy to come across in the Philips preview. This is a watch that they actually pulled from the auction, that has been withdrawn and that didn't sell. This is the Jean-Claude Killy, the reference 6236. Again, it's one of those things that Rolex is not necessarily famous for in the mainstream imagination, so to speak, but it is a complicated Rolex watch, triple calendar chronograph with an hour counter, of course. 3 o'clock is the 30-minute counter, running seconds at 9 o'clock, 12-hour counter at 6 o'clock, pointer dates on the periphery of the dial, and of course, centrally deployed chronograph seconds, Arabic numeral at 12, which is right above the Rolex crown that is itself flanked by the day of the week and month. It's a gorgeous watch in stainless steel. I think somehow that cream dial works just great with the gilt furniture that finishes off the dial, just the right amount of gold, just the right amount of blue on what is otherwise a beautiful and very classy, sporty piece. That is the Rolex Dato Compax 6236 Jean-Claude Killy. It was lot 121, which was withdrawn. I don't know what the story was, but it was a great piece. It was a great piece to see. It was a good example, and it was lovely to examine it. The blue ceramic perpetual oak was great. This was, again, a watch that I wanted to hate because it's a hype watch, right? but I just couldn't help but love it at the end of the day. It is too blue for me, but really, I certainly like it better than the white ceramic. The black ceramic, I think, complements the watch rather well, gives it that blacked out look. But there's a lot that I appreciate about this particular example too. I think the blue of the dial is just great. The background of the moon phase and the realistic expression of the moon itself, I really do appreciate, especially on a contemporary watch. And in this case, let's look on the auction catalog. This is actually, in a way, a one of a kind version of this watch because it was ordered in Paris and the customer chose to uh, order a personalized rotor which depicted the uh, Tour d'Eiffel, the Eiffel Tower. I think it's a beautiful tribute, and it expresses that um, level of Audemars Piguet. If you are actually lucky enough, fortunate enough, but also simply rich enough to be their customer, they do make certain special things for you. I know I've said this a number of times, but I will repeat it. One of the most special and subtle flexes that you had in the horological universe in the past was to have a Royal Oak with a personalized rotor, which usually people used to get, sorry, in the form of their own initials instead of like a skeletonized rotor with the family initials, right? Audemars Piguet, AP. People would get their own initials, but they can do also a more intricate customized work like this. And you could choose fonts and everything. I'm sure they still do this for initials as well with any self-winding Royal Oak time and date or even perpetual calendar, as you see here, that has an exhibition case back. So this is very special, very blue, but a lot of things that I loved about this piece. Of course, platinum perpetual calendar Royal Oak feels so great on a wrist that I would certainly not take a ceramic over that. But the black ceramic looks great. The blue ceramic is also quite stunning. Just way too blue for my liking, even though I like everything that goes on the dial certainly, and also what goes on through the exhibition back on this particular example, which is really, really special. Thank you, Thomas. I appreciate you. Thank you for your presence and support. And if nothing else, please just hit the like button, which would be great, which is something that I would really appreciate. It helps every little bit. Uh, and of course, we had the OG Star Wheel in platinum. I really love this piece. Uh, Everything from the transparent discs for the wandering hours, of course, the platinum case, but in general, the 25720 to me will always remain the iconic expression of this model. I really love that double-stepped bezel of the classic round case too. That's always my preference for non-Royal Oak Audemars Piguet watches. They have made so many great perpetual calendars in that too. For the wandering hours, for the star wheel, it's also great. We have talked a little bit about the 175th anniversary pieces that they have done for the millinery case. That's also amazing, um, especially in steel. I love it. 125th, I wanted to say. Sorry for the confusion, but these were great too, in which you have basically a little bit of a different spin. You have the stars reflected on the dial, a wonderful blue that plays rather well with the white metal of the stainless steel millinery case. Um, I like that the transparent hour discs give full expression to what is really unique about this complication. Again, Audemars Piguet did not actually invent the wandering hours complication. It is like an early modern contraption, basically, but in terms of bringing it to the world of wristwatches and popularizing it, the star wheel in the 25720 that I just showed you was a pioneer, but there was also, as you have seen, the 25898, which was released in various different metals for the celebration of the 125th anniversary of the brand in the unique millinery case. I really like the steel version when it comes to that. It might be the blue dial, it might be the blue accents of the hours, it might simply be that it's steel. Don't ask me why. I also love the fact, again, that the hour discs on these are transparent and expose the actual star wheel, which gives the name to the complication to this particular piece of design. And of course, you have the stars on the dial on these as well, which is something quite cool. That's in the steel version, of course. In the pink gold, unfortunately, you don't have those extra stars, but you still have a very beautiful execution of the complication, and the charcoal tones of the dial, I think, go rather well with the pink gold case as well. I still have a few videos to upload from the New York trip, so stay tuned. Follow me on Instagram. It really helps to exponentially grow both platforms. So click and follow me on Instagram. If you want to help the channel, you can see the information in the crawling ticker. It is included in the video description, all the information. The links are also pinned in the chat, so PayPal and Cash App is available. If you join the group of my committed supporters on Patreon, and you can ask them personally, they're usually in the chats. They might be here now, that I provide very special things for them, and that's already at the entry level of $10 per month. The services will increase in time, but so will the money. But if you join now, you will keep that $10 rate. It will be grandfathered into the next year. And the thing that you get now, beyond the direct line of communication to me, of course, is at least 3 links to watch deals online on a daily basis. And I usually add more. So about 100 different links every month. I think $10 is a really good deal for that, for watch deals online. And a lot of them are great value propositions. So the links are valuable for that. But every day I make some special effort to organize them around the theme, curate a certain focus. So a lot of times these few links add up to providing something educational and informative to, whether they expose you to, different options that you have not come across in a certain category of watches that you already like, or maybe they lead you to discover a genre of watches or a brand that you have not paid attention to before. In either case, if you join me on Patreon, you can always send me your interests, your aspirations, your desires in terms of what you want to acquire next on the market of watches, on the horological market. And I will always have the option to tailor some of these links around your interests as well, which is something that I already do for my most loyal supporters there on Patreon. So this brings me to the end of my broadcast. I think I am almost done. So if you would like to, again, if you would like to ask a last minute question or have a special request, feel free to send it in. But in either case, I appreciate you. Thank you for being here for this fine Christmas evening. Merry Christmas. Thank you for joining me. I hope you have a great Christmas, happy holidays, and a wonderful rest of the year with your loved ones. And I will see you again tomorrow around the same time, hopefully with a longer broadcast as well. And hey, it's I look forward to it. And certainly we will have much to celebrate and much to talk about in terms of watches. So hit the like button on your way out, and I will see you tomorrow. Goodbye.